DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, and we welcome back Murray Mexted, the All Black icon. And very sad news came through yesterday, as well you know. The passing of a man who's a dear friend of his, and also for all of us who grew up in that era of Wellington and All Black rugby, Stu Wilson, Bernie Fraser, Alan Hewson, Murray Mexted. Well, they were heroes of mine and heroes of all Wellington rugby fans and All Black fans. And Mex, you sent me a really cool photo of yourself and Stu having a coffee in your son's coffee shop, and that was the morning. And then obviously he passed away that night, so I don't really know what to say to you, mate.
Yeah, no, well, there's nothing you can say. I mean, Stu was Stu too. He had a sort of a, hop in his step as he was walking around. He had a big smile. He was larger than life. He was positive like he always is. And we had a bit of a laugh and a cup of coffee, obviously, and a good old yarn, And next thing I get this call to say he'd passed away, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. It just didn't make sense at all. Passed away in his sleep, It's a nice way to go for some, I guess, but it's too early for Stu, for Super Stu, Tragic.
Super Stu. I mean, and, just talk to us about the player that he was and also the character that he was. But just as a player to start with, I mean, when I grew up, I just admired him so much as an All Black winger. He was everything that you wanted a winger to be. He was strong and fast and skillful. He brought new dimensions to the game. And then he had that off-field presence as well, which made him as much of a star as his play on the field.
Yeah, no, he was a special character, there's no doubt about it. And, he was the best. In my view, he was the best. And we were mates before we both made the All Blacks, actually. And he was flatting in a house not far from me in Tawa. And he'd sort of, he originally came from Gore, moved up to the North Island, but we got to know each other pretty well, and of course we played a hell of a lot of rugby together. I don't know how many games, but an enormous amount of games for Wellington, an enormous amount of games for the All Blacks. So we know each other pretty damn well, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, he just looked so full of life, literally so full of life, and he was, as a player though. You asked that question. As a player, he was magnificent. He had the ability to beat players, opposition players, defenders, and make it look easy. He just seemed to slip through the gap all the time. He didn't have out-and-out pace like Bernie Fraser did. Bernie Fraser scored his tries through pace with the outside break, most of them in Bernie's corner at Athletic Park, if you remember those days.
I do so, yep.
Stu was on the other wing and most of the time, but Centre, he played a bit at centre as well, and he just used to glide through as though the gap was just waiting for him, and he would always seem to take it, and scored tries effortlessly at All Black level. He was quite magnificent. So it was a great combination, particularly with Huey at fullback. And both those two players, Huey and Bernie, were probably quicker than Stu, but Stu was so elusive. And they couldn't, no one seemed to be able to tie him up. But one of the great things for me as a number 8 was that I knew he was always going to beat the line, break the line. He'd always break the line. So as a number 8, you're trying to support that ball carrier. And so you'd actually go on a sharper angle because you knew he was going to break the line, whereas normally you'd sort of go on a bit of a curve and then support the player when he ran into trouble. But with Stu, you didn't have to worry about that. You just knew you had to get there somehow. You had to get to where the action was, and he was the action. There's no doubt about it.
Mex, certain players change the positions, don't they? And they come along at the right time. And, I look at John Kirwan after him and Jeff Wilson, who both played in that number 14 jersey too. And I think that both of those guys would have been inspired by Stu Wilson and his play, because I could see aspects of Stu's play in both of those players.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair to say. I mean, I think David Campese said something similar too, just recently, actually. I got some feedback on that, but no, he was creative, without a doubt. His anticipation was uncanny, and his ability to score tries was outstanding. As far as defence went, he'd be yelling out for support. And so that in itself was a really good thing because everyone was on the job. You had to be,
Yep.
And you had Stewie and Bernie and Huey, and none of them
What a
really
back
were
three.
too interested in defence.
Not
Their
really.
game was attack, So we had to sort of cover for that in many respects.
What a Wellington side, though, Mex, that 1981 side. And I've seen some great photos of all you guys celebrating afterwards and things. And I was thinking about it last night. For the career that he had, Stu Wilson, playing in that first ever Grand Slam tour, playing against the Springboks at home, playing against the Lions in 1983, winning a championship and a Ranfurly Shield double in 1981 with Wellington. He packed an awful lot into those 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, no, he certainly did. And he did it with style and panache.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
Good word.
incorrigible on and off the field, but beautifully mannered, always looked right.
Good looking dude.
He had it all. I mean, he had a bit of mischief with Bernie, and they sort of cultivated that sort of relationship. But apart from that, he was absolutely a wonderful citizen of the world, and a magnificent rugby player, the best.
And so just to wrap this up, and I don't want to, God, that sounds awful saying that, but look, you obviously form friendships with these men that you play with, and they last a lifetime, don't they? Because I remember those photos where you're in the dressing room, and that's 40 or 50 years ago, Mex, and then, there you were on the morning before he died, and you're having coffee with him, and what, I suppose, does it always take you back to that, I don't know, to those times? You feel like you're as young as you ever was when you sit with a guy like that?
Yeah, I certainly think that's the case. There's nothing. It's just it's so simple. It's so uncomplicated when you've got that sort of friendship. It's so easy. You accept each other years ago for the way you are, and you've got a relationship. And, we don't live too far away from each other now, so it's been really good in the last few years to be able to catch up with him, because at one stage he was up in Auckland and I was in Wellington, and, we didn't see each other as much. But, no, it's been lovely in the last few years, actually, but it's an uncomplicated relationship when you've known someone that long, but you've covered a lot of territory also. Yeah. It's not just time. You've done a lot of stuff together, and you know each other inside out, and there's no sort of bridge to walk across. It's quite a wonderful. Well, everyone will be listening. Everyone who is listening to this will have those relationships with other people.
Yeah,
and will understand what I'm saying.
Oh, well, rest in peace. What a great man. And I know how much it breaks your heart as well. So, as I said, I wish I could say something at these times that would mean something, mate. But I just, I really feel for you.
I don't believe it, actually. I still can't get my head around it. I mean, it just seems unnecessary and too soon,
DSPN.